In this video, we're going to talk about the monitor console. I'm going to talk about how the monitor console is laid out and how signal gets into the console, how it's routed, and then how it gets out of the console to the monitor mixes that are out on stage. So what we have here is our monitor board. It's the Midas Heritage 1000, and the way that it's laid out is every instrument or vocal mic has its own channel that comes into the console, and each channel, the signal flow goes from the top of the strip vertically down to the last part is the mute button, because we don't use the faders. Those are used in a front of house situation. At the top of the channel strip, the very first buttons you see are the input selector and the phantom power button. The input selector chooses between which input on the back of the board that the console lets signal pass through. The phantom power is used for condenser microphones or active direct boxes, but in this situation we get all of our phantom power from the house console. So the phantom power on the monitor console does not need to be on. The very next knob is the gain knob. And what that does is the gain knob sets the amount of signal that comes in through the channel strip. The more you turn the gain knob clockwise, the more signal comes in. You turn it counterclockwise, less signal comes in. This allows you to have a good, strong signal coming in, and if it starts to distort or clip on you, back it down a little to where it's not clipping or distorting anymore. The next set of buttons is the phase switch and the pad switch. The phase switch you don't have to worry too much about unless you have a stereo signal or two mics on a single source. The pad switch attenuates the incoming signal down. Depending on the manufacturer, it could be 20 dB or 40 dB. What it's used for is if the signal coming in is so hot that you have to turn the gain all the way down, and it's still coming in clipped or just overdriving, then you turn the pad switch on, and then that attenuates the signal down so that you can now use your gain knob to get a good level coming in through your channel strip. The next section we see here, this is our EQ section. This is where we add our tone control. Here we have our highs, our high mids, low mids, and lows. And the way it works is there's an outer knob. I don't know if you can see very well here. There's an outer knob that selects your frequency, and then the inner knob selects the amount of boost or cut of that frequency. For the high mids and the low mids, you have your frequency select right here on the outside. Then you also have your boost and cut in the middle. But also you have another knob right here that allows you to select the bandwidth. And what that is it's how wide or narrow your boost and cut is going to be. Your low mids, same thing, the bandwidth control is on top, your boost and cut, and your frequency select knob. After that, you have your lows, which again is just like the highs. You have frequency select right here on the outside, and your amount of boost and cut on the center. The EQ won't work. This is the EQ switch. You have to have the EQ switch on, otherwise the EQ won't work. And then you have your high pass, which what a high pass button does is it rolls off the low end on a gentle slope. So you can have your lows kind of filter out a little bit. And this knob actually selects the frequency start point of that roll off. That's the EQ section of the monitor console. After that, we have where the individual monitor mixes come into play. So on this particular console, we have 10 monitor mixes. In the monitor mixes, they go in a horizontal fashion. So mix number 1 goes all the way across horizontally. So if you want more of kick in mix number 1, which happens to be our pulpit monitor, you go to the kick channel, down to mix number 1, and turn it up. You dial a mix in by working your way horizontally. So you add kick, then you can go to snare, and then to the tom channel, and add more that way. That's how you build a mix for each separate monitor output. So we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 separate monitor mixes that can be mixed horizontally on the monitor mix. The mute section, the mute button on the input section, will just turn the whole channel on or off. So if you have the mute button on, then it kills that particular instrument in all of the monitor mixes at the same time. These controls would only be in use if we were using this to run as a house board. So you don't have to worry about these. This would be like a output fader in your pan control, things like that we don't use. So basically we're just staying within this section here, from the gain to the EQ to the monitor mix section. So what happens is, after the mix is done horizontally and you dial up your mix, mix number 1 is automatically assigned to the output number 1, and here we have it as our pulpit mix. So mix number 1 is just wired to be output number 1 over here in the output section. This is the output section in the middle of the console. This is your output meter. Shows you if you're running too hot or too low. After that are the actual output masters right here, the different colors, and the different colors match the colors on the input section. So 1 and 2 red is output 1 and 2 red. In the output master section, we have several controls here. The first one is fader swap, and what that does is it changes your output master from the knob to the fader. So you have to put your fader up to get any kind of output sound. The rest of the knobs we don't use because they would be in use for a different function other than the monitor console. So don't worry about these, but we need to make sure that none of the auxiliary masters are muted, and we need to make sure that all of the fader swap lights are on, so that you'll be able to use the fader as your output section master. So the next part of the output section, like we've already talked about, is your output section master. What this does is this controls the whole mix that's going out to the separate monitors or in-ear monitors. So if a monitor is too loud overall, you can take care of it quickly by bringing the fader down, or vice versa. If it's not loud enough overall, you can take care of it by bringing the fader up. Here we have our automation section, which basically just stores scenes or snapshots of the mute buttons, of what's turned on and what's turned off. So we have scene number 1 is stored with all of the music on, and then scene number 2, you just go next, turns all of the vocals off for the altar call. To get back to scene number 1, you hit last, and it automatically loads it back up. The matrix section, this would be used if the console was being used in a front of house capability, so we don't really use it in a monitor setting. And then over here we go back to another input section, and it's just like the other one. You have your individual channels, and each strip on each channel has a gain, EQ, monitor mix section, and then your mute switch. And then the rest of it you don't have to worry about because we're not using it as a front of house console. I hope this video has been helpful. Next time we'll talk about the Avion mixes and how the headphone mixers work and how they interact with the monitor console.